And I lectured many times, and I get nice emails from people because I'm not working with you individually. And I've gotten emails from people back saying, you know what? I went home, you told that story, I went home, and I you know, it was something I needed to talk about my wife about for the last 20 years. And we finally did, and we made up, or something like that. And that's what healing is. And as a doctor, that's medicine. It's called mind-body medicine. So, with that, I will stop. And thank you for your attention. And take questions, comments, Sharon. Yes, sir.
Oh, it was the do we just have one?
I don't know. How many mics today?
Stand in. Go ahead.
Oh, we got two.
Stand.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
I know the answer to this could go on for an hour, but do the best you can. Could you comment about the interrelationships between the integrative medicine approach, psychiatry, psychology, and faith?
Nothing to it.
That's a good question. And if you saw, one of my slides was entitled, Live the Question, and I could say, study that and get back to me. It's all interrelated. I've been blessed, in a sense, to always think outside the box. And we kind of get trained in limited focus, and we become experts in those fields, and they're wonderful, but my context is trying to broaden the space to see how they relate. Everything I said is related to psychology in terms of people's perceptions, people's attitudes, people's beliefs, people's emotions, but not just psychology, because psychology without where it lives. So in terms of how I integrate that, when I teach and do trainings with people, sometimes psychiatrists in the audience, talking about the mind-body connection, if I'm teaching medical doctors, I'm teaching them to integrate the mind and emotions. If I'm teaching psychologists, I'm teaching them to integrate the body. You know, sometimes the pain and the anger and the conflict is living in the irritable bowel syndrome, and it has to be dealt with together. So my own sense of that is we need the specialty in the context of whether it's psychiatry or psychology, and we need to broaden the base. Now, you mentioned faith. Faith is real too. I mean, if you want to know from a mind-body standpoint, there are studies on the placebo effect, that 50% of the efficacy of almost any medicine is the faith and belief that the patient has that it's going to work. Hopefully it is the right medicine and will do what it says, but it's being supported by your faith and belief in it. There's a book by Larry Dosey, who's a medical doctor, who wrote a book on healing words and prayer and the power of prayer in medicine in terms of faith and belief. How I integrate it in answering the question is I try to find what's the faith of the patient. So for example, another one of these husband-wife stories, where are our stresses, our business, our relationships? A woman came to me with chronic back pain. And of 5 years duration, she went to the neurologist, the chiropractor, the naturopath, physical therapist, massage therapist, everybody to treat her back pain. And it's real, no question that she was feeling it. It wasn't all in her head. And even if it's all in your head, that makes it real too. You're feeling it, you're experiencing it. And I was working with her, and we connected a little bit, and I'm doing my thing, listening to it and exploring what it is, and eventually she's able to tell me the truth after 2 or 3 visits. And the truth was she was having an affair with her husband's best friend for the last 5 years and keeping it secret. And she couldn't stop it. You know, she couldn't say no because she was in this bind, right? She couldn't stop it. She didn't want anybody to find out. And she was Catholic. And she had such guilt. Where did the guilt go? Right to her back. She was punishing herself. We do that. We can do it with food. We can do it with pain. We can do it with drink. That's what we do. Her healing was to engage her faith. Because to help her heal was her faith was either God is punishing me or I'm punishing me. To encourage her to go to her priest and confess. To go to confession. And as soon as she could confess to herself, and then in the context, if they can tell me the truth, they're telling themselves the truth. And she confessed to the priest, and she could tell her husband and that, and she faced the painful truth, and she got out of it. And so I try to engage people's faith of what's their faith, what do they believe.
Might
So
just be
my
tired.
bias is very
Early
much
in his
that
recovery.
the client is the healer. The less I'm doing anything, the better off they're going to be. But people want you to do something to them instead of looking so. I hope that helps answer your question. Yeah.
Ed?
Doctor, thanks very much for making us old guys feel so better today. It's very helpful. The question is this: what is the chance of applying your principles to these baseball players instead of steroids?
What is the chance? Well, call up. Well, George Steinbrenner is not in charge anymore, but I'm available if they want to hire me. You remember Seinfeld? Yeah. George Seinfeld, how happy he was he got a job with the Yankees. Roger said I was brought up in the South Bronx. Okay, I'll tell you a funny story about that. I mean, it would be good, but you mentioned that it wasn't just the steroids. My idol when I was growing up, I lived and died whether Mickey Mantle got a hit or not. 1956, and I would ride in the car with my parents to our relatives in Brooklyn, and the only thing I cared about when is Mickey getting up. And then I was like 13 years old or 14 years old, and I heard him talk, and he must have been drunk when he was talking, because I loved Mickey Mantle, but we later found out that he had issues, not judging him. And it was amazing how my youth ended as soon as I heard him speak, because it was kind of like I was idolizing this guy, and it kind of woke me up in that way. My sense is someday they'll wake up and they'll start to face it and they'll come clean. And I hope that happens, but we can stop going to the baseball games, I guess, until that happens. I don't know. Thank you for your question. Yeah.
Excuse me. A little swollen getting up. Thank you. That was very interesting. The question is, how are people in your profession paid? In other words, does Medicare cover your bills, or is it all out of your pocket, out of the patient's pocket? Period.
Okay. Well, my first answer was going to be they reach into their pocket and they give me. How we get paid? I'm a naturopathic physician. I'm not speaking for my profession, but in answering your question, in terms of what I said, that we're not all the same in terms of our focus and approach. I didn't focus too much on that. But a naturopathic doctor is licensed and takes state board of exams, and Connecticut is a state that we're licensed in. Just to give a little background, our schooling is we go through pre-med, and then the first 2 years are similar to a medical school, but instead of studying drugs and surgery and specializing in a part of the body and being a specialist that way, we specialize in different therapeutics like nutrition, homeopathy, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, etc. Obviously, my specialty is stress, the mind-body connection is what I work on. To answer your question, we're not nationally licensed, so we're not covered by Medicaid or Medicare. How that works for me is I have some clients who do have Medicare, obviously they all do. They send it into Medicare, it gets rejected, and then they have a supplemental. Sometimes they have a supplemental that will cover what Medicare doesn't, etc. That's first. For people who don't have Medicare, we're like any other doctor. We're licensed. There are HMOs, and most of my clients, depending upon the policy, Cigna, Anthem, Blue Cross, United Health, I give them a slip and insurance will pay, or they pay, say, like any other doctor. So, okay, thanks.
Bob?
You recall Harry Overstreet wrote a very important book called The Mature Mind quite a few years ago. What would be your definition of the characteristics of a mature person?
Okay. I didn't get that book. What was the name again? Overstreet?
Harry Overstreet.
Harry Overstreet. The mature person. One who's willing to have a beginner's mind and learn from what's happening in the moment. And I'll tell you a little story that might answer that in terms of what has helped me. So the willingness to choose to face our reality in terms of, and even if it's painful, to learn and grow from our life. And I was getting up, as I'm sure some of you guys do in the middle of the night, to go to the bathroom. And I couldn't get back to sleep, and I clicked on the tube, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning. This was a couple of years ago. And